Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, Arwin, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, and a whole bunch of people in Gilded, so welcome one and all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Morning. Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Hey, Nathan, hey, everyone.
Let's get her going. We have a great pre-show. Keep it going.
It just took the air out of me when he started the show. I can't do it.
Can't do what? We're going to be talking about the 1-2 punch if the name doesn't make it clear what we're talking about. Because John went out on a debating session with MC Toon and Ruhif. Is that correct? Have I got the correct duo? It's been a couple of weeks. In any event.
That is the dynamic.
Go on.
That is the dynamic duo.
Right.
Ruhif and McBoone.
And he talked about going out to debate anybody who would take him up on the idea that he would concede essentially every point that was being made and only make 2 argumentation points and win. And those 2 points were made and used to win outright, without exception, without rebuttal, without any challenge, because there is no challenge. And we're going to go through those 2 points after housekeeping. So, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, but they would have to be a physical geometric situation for the ballers. But as we know, with the weather, it changes. So obviously, it can't be.
That's
How
right.
about moon down and moonrise?
The moon, what? Sorry, Arwin?
Moon down and moonrise proves the geometric horizon, right?
No. So, if another first problem with that is, show me one.
That's what Alan said.
He's asked
Yeah,
a really,
that was the point.
hold on, he's asked a really interesting question because what he's suggesting or inferring is that the moon would go behind the geometric horizon, which would be at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, according to globe maths. However, this is like what's as rare as hen's teeth. Correct me if anybody else has seen one of these. Has anybody seen the moon rise above the horizon? The only time
No.
I've got one example. Someone show me one. Nobody?
Yeah, but it only rises if it's actually behind a mountain range. Because if it's an actual flat horizon, it just phases in and out as soon as it touches it at the bottom. Because it doesn't actually rise. That was the joke.
Well, okay, I
Let
got
me
that.
remind you of something.
Well, I just want to give the one example I got, which was a NASA example of, I can't remember if it was a high altitude plane or claimed to be the ISS, but one or the other, with a picture of the moon rising above like a horizon comprised of clouds. So that's a moonrise shot that the legitimacy of which I don't know, but that's the only example I can think of where somebody showed me a moonrise at what I would call the horizon.
The clouds are not geometric. No, the difference is when they talk about a sunrise and a sunset, what most of them, and I mean 99% of them, don't know is officially that's known as the sun mirage. The moon doesn't have a moon mirage because it doesn't give off heat. It's actually cold, not hot. So the sun mirage is what gives the impression that something is setting down behind the physical horizon. So no, this moon doesn't do that. So we don't see the moon coming from up behind an horizon and going down behind the horizon. We don't see that because the moon doesn't create mirages. because it doesn't give off heat. It gives off actually cold. It's provably cold with a magnifying glass. So no, that's why that doesn't happen.
But
Secondly,
just to address the housekeeping question, though, if the Earth was a sphere with a radius of 3959, as stated in the Earth curve maths, then every distance to the horizon, which is claimed to be blocking the moon in this example, or the sun in this example, would be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, exactly as they state. But as 10th Man pointed out about 2 minutes ago, the black swan shows the horizon moves with the weather, and there are examples of what is claimed to be a geometric limitation massively in excess of where it should be blocking things. In this example, blocking oil rigs. It's not blocking them, it's behind them. So it's not a geometric limitation to anything. It's not Earth curve. The horizon isn't Earth curve. But let's move on with housekeeping.
No, you didn't leave me finish. I was trying to add in an epic point about the horizon.
Oh, go on.
Please leave me finish.
Go on then.
Right. The horizon is always refracted within their model of what they call 7/6, or which is not light refraction, right? It's not to do with light or temperature or densities of mediums, right? That it's always, that is based on a change in the physical, a mathematical change in the size of a mathematical change in the physical size of their globe, and it's always a standard of 7/6, or but it can increase from there depending on the observation and what they need to claim. Like with the black swan, where they claimed it was also basically infinite over 6R, which made the black swan, the radius of a globe with the black swan observation would be over 260,000 statute miles. So you could never be seeing the globe's geometric horizon because it's claimed officially to always be a 7/6R horizon, which makes the globe's radius at least 4,618 statute miles as opposed to 3,959 statute miles. They have to claim that the globe has a radius of 3,959 statute miles. So in diagrams, they can show you how Polaris works, right, fraudulently. But when it comes to reality, there is never a time that there isn't at least a standard of 7/6, or what they call standard refraction, which is not refraction of light. It's also known as terrestrial refraction, right? Which is 7/6, or same thing, which is a change in their terra firma, the size of their terra firma. The standard is 7/6, or.
Can I ask a question?
Well, this is interesting because they've swindled.
1 second, you missed the crescendo. Horizon officially cannot be geometric.
Yes, that's correct. But they've duped people into believing that the light refraction is actually what's being discussed when they talk about 7/6R, to the point where people like Craig will tell you that the hand in front of your face isn't where you think it is to a certain degree because the light's bending at a rate of 7/6R. Well, 7/6R isn't light doing anything, because Brian's pointing out it's an inflation of the radial value to make the sphere slightly larger. Right? And he takes up the radius from 3959 to 40, whatever it was. Right, it just makes it a little bit bigger. That's all it does.
But
Good morning, guys.
The point is that it's never matching 3959 at any point. They always have to give it at least a 4,618 statute mile radius. So
right,
it's
but what you're
ever
detailing is a
their
geometric change mathematically, as you've already detailed. You're like, the reification of their model has a physical change derived from this mathematics. But then when you go on to discuss it, you're talking about the change in R value at 7/6 of the radius that they state at 3959. What's that got to do with light again? Oh, well, nothing. We're just changing the radius of the sphere Earth, we presuppose, when we reify it into a physical geometric shape that blocks things in the distance, even when it doesn't. So when it doesn't tally up with what we see in our lenses and cameras, we'll say that the ground has grown slightly at this rate, and we'll call that what light does around the bending sphere. So you think your hand isn't where it is?
You know, sorry, John, one quickly. You know the way when the ballers say, well, there's never a day without atmosphere. You know the way they say that? What they're actually stating there, what most of them don't realize, is there's never a day that their globe is not said to have a radius of 4,618 statute miles. Because there has never been an observation in history ever, with the exception of fog or something, where the horizon matched where it would be on a globe as per with a radius of 3,959 miles, right, as per the observer's elevation height. There has never been, and that's why they always, as a standard refraction, always have to claim that there's at least 7/6R at play all the time.
Right. But
Well,
it's a
there's a
massive
reason for
hoodwink.
that, Brian.
It's a massive hoodwink because this description that Brian's just gave included and was limited to a description of an increase of a radial value from a base of 3959. That's what it only describes. That's all it is. However, when he then goes on to describe fog, he's giving the ballers their just juxtaposition with what actually changes a radial value to something that's got anything to do with atmosphere, which is sphere-shaped air wrapped around a sphere-shaped Earth. Well, there isn't any such thing as sphere-shaped air, and because atmospheric refraction, in name only, is the title that's given to this increase of a radial value of a presupposed spherical Earth, people automatically say that's what the light's doing because it's sphere-shaped. We've always got sphere-shaped air, we've always got atmosphere. No, we've never got sphere-shaped air. Air doesn't take the shape of a sphere. And what you're saying is sphere-shaped air with refractive effects, in name only, arbitrarily assigned to 7/6 of a radius or any derivation of the radius you see fit. That's all it is. It's sod all to do with light. And we haven't got atmosphere. It's an oxymoron. Air isn't sphere-shaped. But that's what they think it is when they talk about this effect. They think it's something to do with the light in the air.
Well, you got to forgive them because they are doing these mathematics below surface level. So the horizon that they're talking about, geometric or refracted, either one, in their mathematics exists below surface level.
No, the refracted horizon.
We will get to that. Well,
Sorry,
I think
what's
that's the point to talk about the 1-2 punch, right? That's a segue. Let's. We've only had one housekeeping question. We're already, what is it?
Can
15
I add
minutes.
something?
You can, but you don't know where the 1-2 punch is coming from, so you might get knocked out in the process. But go ahead.
Well, no, it's just to reiterate what Brian's saying, because I'm loving this point that he's trying to reiterate, because something I've been saying for a while too, like, it's that okie doke, right? Putting the radius of the Earth into an equation and changing it, how does that actually prove the radius that is supposed to be salvaged? And it's devastating to them, because I used to think, wait a minute, well, when they put the 7/6R, that R is the radius of the Earth, physically measured radius of the Earth. So to change that, you're going to put it into an equation to prove it? It never made any sense to me. And it's like a really, really slick okey doke. And I think it's something that we should point out very, very, the way that we're doing it right now. It's a great point.
Right. Anthony was doing
anyway,
it, not because I'm trying to make fun of Brian by saying Anthony did it 2 weeks ago, but he did it with Mick West. Here's your calculation. Here's how we're being told in your maths we should always be looking at the refracted value without exception. Because everything's always refracted, we've always got sphere-shaped air, aka atmosphere, and we in name only call 7/6R atmospheric refraction. So Anthony called him out. Well, show us in the maths where this has anything to do with refraction, where it has anything to do with light, and it doesn't. It's only 7/6 of a radius. That's all it's doing. It's changing the radius. So it hasn't got anything to do with light. And when called out on it, Mick West took him to sites that talked about actual refraction, effects on flat planes being measured, and showed him examples of fish tanks with flat planes in them. It's like this has nothing to do with an R value at 7/6 or any other value that you derive from it. It's not light bending, but they've just named it atmospheric refraction while they changed the rate of the radius. And Chocolate's saying, ironically, to prove the radius, that's how you prove it. We're looking at a radius-based geometric horizon in the way, but it's not in the way it's supposed to be in the way geometrically, so we're going to bend the light at the rate of the radius that we're trying to prove with this observation. You're like, what? God, how is this? Most people tune out. We got lost in it. We got totally snared by the Earth curve calculator, Chocolate. We were there for months. Great little fly trap.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see,
it was more. Sorry, John. Go ahead, brother.
I was going to say, well, if you want to see those horizons, you have to be able to see below surface level.
Right, which is an excellent
And
segue.
no
Perfect.
problem.
Let's get back to this.
That's-
So
that's
this
not
is the
correct.
bottom line. Something we never saw in the Earth
Hold
curve
on.
calculator. Go on, whoever that is, who's desperate to talk through every word as well. Go on.
No, you're missing what they do. Whatever distance the horizon is from an observer's elevation, that is the amount of change in size the globe has. So they always give it a 7/6 as a standard because they know, without a doubt, we will never see an horizon that will match their 3959. So as a standard, they will give at least 7/6 4,618 mile radius, right? But they will change that. That is the starting point. That's like 14.7 psi. That is the starting point. They will think of a tire. It already has 14.7 psi in it. They will then inflate that tire to whatever size they need to inflate it as per the observation. So they always will have a 7/6, and right when the horizon just happens to be, due to weather or whatever, close to you, they'll claim 7/6. But when it's in the black swan, they'll claim observation. They'll claim infinite over 6R because they need to inflate that right globe to whatever size they need it to be to match the observation.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
I don't know
Even
what
their
it-
description doesn't match the observation. You've said it twice now, so I'm going to have to step in and make this mild correction. It's nothing in terms of you being incorrect. You aren't. But they are incorrect when they use that as an excuse, and I want to explain why. So if we step into their paradigm and assume, as they describe it, that 7/6R increasing the rate of the radius, or infinite over 6R in this instance, increasing the rate of the radius by an infinite value to put the horizon behind the thing that suddenly isn't refracted. So what, the oil rigs stay where they are, but the horizon refracts? Doesn't make any sense. If they're going to claim that it's infinite over 6R refraction, all that would happen is everything, including the physical obstruction, it's all physical. Do you know what I mean? Because in the same way, the back of the oil rig can't be seen because it's blocked by the front of it. That's how things that are physical work. Doesn't matter how much refraction it is, you're never going to see the back of the oil rig. The front of it's in the way. And the hill's in the way of that if it's Earth curve. So if they're claiming it's infinite over our refraction, it just pushes all of it, everything, all of it, including the obstruction. It doesn't just push the obstruction behind the thing. It's like saying, well, the refraction means I can see the back of the oil rig now. No, it's blocked by the walls at the front of the oil rig. So suddenly what? The refraction has moved the wall at the front of the oil rig behind itself so we can see the people inside eating? No. And if there's a physical wall called Earth curve in the way of the oil rig and you're claiming it's all refracted, then it's all refracted in the same manner. It doesn't push a horizon behind things, and it doesn't push walls behind themselves. And that's what Earth curves claim to be, a bloody wall in the way. So how is this wall suddenly hopping behind the thing it's refracting? No, you don't have it both ways, my friends. Even in your nonsense explanation, it doesn't suddenly push the blockage behind the thing it blocks, because otherwise you can have walls moving behind the thing that they're blocking. It's absurd. So their explanation doesn't even tally.
Hold on, because y'all mentioned their descriptions with mathematics, but those descriptions come from the use of surface level and eye level.
Third try to get there.
And
Perfect. Let's do it. Right, this is the 1-2 punch. Been trying, but Brian stopped us the second time. Anybody else got anything to add? Bloody moon horizons and 7/6R. Right, we're there. This is the segue. So, John managed to take them down with this point that we got completely blindsided by. We didn't even spot it when we were arguing about the Earth curve calculator. Marked in the Earth curve calculator is surface level. Got eye level, surface level. They're parallel with each other, moving away from left to right on the page with a perfectly horizontal dotted and fixed straight line, representing surface and eye level. Now, the differential in the mathematics between these two is what gives you your Earth curve. And below surface level means that you've got a surface level to observe this claim to be geometric, never to be observed, always refracted horizon below the surface level that's actually used for measurements in all instances. Now, I want John, hopefully now, to, with a bit of build-up, because this is what we discussed in the pre-show and why the show's got the title it has, use this as the number one of 1-2 punch to explain how this undid McToon and Ruhif. Over to you, John.
Well, you can let them have any idea of refraction they want, any size radius they want, but the differential is still established between two flat planes. So no matter how much they extend or expand their sphere, it will never be a flat plane. And that's what you need to take the measurements from.
I'm still waiting to find out how expanding your sphere actually proves the size that it was before you expanded it.
It doesn't.
Where does that work?
It doesn't. It paradoxically leaves them with no ability to measure the actual geometry, to base the R on, to bend the R at a rate of 7/6R. If you can never see, because of a claim of atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, that's actually just an increased size radius, then if you're always seeing an increased size radius, you can't get the original 3959 radius measurement ever in any circumstances to derive 7/6R, to increase the radius and claim it's light bending around a curved surface you can no longer measure. So it's a paradox. That's where it leaves them.
Right, which destroys their positive claim. And that's why the black swan is important, because they make a positive claim that the horizon is a physical geometric obstruction.
Right, that's Yoda Nathan would say on screen. Refraction? Geometry it is not.
I was going to say, that's why they have to reiterate continuously that it's refraction, so that they have the ability to change the radius and slip by with that okie doke, making people think, oh yeah, changing the radius actually is talking about an optical illusion.
But even that's a red herring, because them changing their radius still does not give them a flat plane.
Right. They're always going to be below surface level, because the differential between the surface level and the eye level is what gave them the R in reality, not a measurement from Al-Biruni's dip to a geometric horizon he can no longer see, because we'll never see the geometric horizon. The geometric horizon wouldn't expect to be seen. That's what we're told by people like A.B. Maths and Planar Walk, even Rumpus. The geometric horizon only exists in the maths. These are quotes. Well, this is people who have had to take it to the next logical step, which is to say that we can never see physical geometry. So all of the Earth curve maths assertions that they're proving the physical rate it will block something in the distance are bunk. Because, quote, we aren't expecting to see physical geometry, A.B. Maths. He calls himself A.B. Science. Or nobody's expecting to see the physical geometric horizon, Planar Walk. I think I'm paraphrasing slightly. And again, Rumpus, the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. That's Earth curve, marked with an X, label horizon, in there begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective, hijacking Earth curve calculator. That's their horizon. The one they said was blocking the boats and buildings when they told you to watch things go over the hill that's called Earth curve. Yeah, that only exists in maths. Can never be seen, can never be measured, can never be used to claim that you can derive an R value at 7/6 of the rate to call it refraction in sphere-shaped air. It's all nonsense. It's just a massive hoodwink.
Nathan, could a thought experiment block anything?
No, for sure.
Can math block anything?
No, it's conceptual only, descriptions and language. That's the one of the 1-2 punch. The two of the 2 punch is elevation angles and their acquisition necessitating a flat plane. But as it's John that's describing this 1-2 punch, as it's him who executed it, over to you again, John.
Well, Ruhif was using the celestial sphere model, which is a model created from flat Earth elevation angles, and they've hijacked that perspective and put into the celestial sphere model, which is still a model of a flat plane with a celestial dome, and then they've just taken another flat plane and glued it to the bottom and made their celestial sphere out of that.
That'd be two flat planes. So nothing spherical in their origins of their explanations, just 2 flat planes.
Right.
And to add to that, the celestial sphere model that the ancients used, because they say that's the same one and the same, the Earth is motionless and is the center, not the sun, and everything goes around the Earth. So they got several things wrong when they go to the celestial sphere model, because they're going to how it actually works, but then they get several things wrong because in their current model, the sun's the center and the Earth's orbiting, but in the celestial sphere model, the Earth is at the center and motionless, and the luminaries are moving. So it's a little bit more of a two-punch than most people think.
Well, it's a knockout blow, which is why we won't necessarily put a top three together in this regard. We'll keep it as the 1-2 punch, because that's it. That's the end of globe Earth geometry, because it shows in no uncertain terms that the derivation of globe Earth geometry comes from a flat plane. The maps, the navigation, the methodology of measuring the stars all comes from a flat plane. And the model that they use and apply a Haversine formula to is a flat plane. So there's no two ways about what we're explaining to you. If you're listening for the first time and you're unfortunate enough to have stumbled on this show, that's what we're talking about. Every claim of a globe has its origins in a flat plane. And the navigation with potentially a claim to be model of a globe Earth in between will take a step from measuring a flat plane to a conversion to a spherical projection that has come from a map that was derived from elevation angles to Polaris on a flat plane. So your claim of a globe requires and utilizes the flat plane that we actually dwell atop. Earth is flat, and that is how your globe is comprised. This is a revelation to anybody watching. That's why it's the 1-2 punch that is the devastation of the heliocentric model, because it relies on a flat plane, and the proof of the flat plane, because that's where all the models have come from.
Right. And the minute you try to curve that line that you would call surface level, sea level, your baseline, you can no longer acquire the measurements to create those models.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I've been waiting to get in here since you mentioned your debate with Ruhif. Ruhif used greater than 7/6R within his presentation at the start of the debate with John, as a way of trying to somewhat straighten out. I mean, and I reiterate the word somewhat, straighten out the surface between the observer and the horizon. So Ruhif used, not only did he use an extension of the globe's radius from its standard 7/6R, but he also used within his presentation a curved adjacent.
Yep. And that's when they argued, when I pointed that out to them, is when they tried to argue that curved lines can give you an angle.
Yeah, and from there they go on to claim that radius lines can be curved. That's the next one after that.
It's more than
And the way they demonstrated you could get curved angles from curved lines is by drawing straight lines to points on a curve and saying that is an angle, those two straight lines.
Yeah, but what Ruhif did wasn't even create a tangent plane. He didn't create a tangent plane. If you look at his presentation, he used a greater than 7/6R to create a somewhat horizontal line between observer and horizon. So he wasn't even going all the way to the GP, just between the observer and the horizon.
I see what you're saying. What you're saying is, if you can get it flat enough, it looks like it's an angle, but fundamentally flawed, because no matter how big you make that sphere and how close you get it with the second straight line, it's not a straight line meeting it. It's flawed. It would throw up an error if you tried to do it in any CAD program. It simply wouldn't work, and we have demonstrated that's the case. But the little swindling liar that's known as Ruhif decided to say that it is an angle. Oh, wow, that's intellectual dishonesty if ever I've seen it. What, it just kind of seems like an angle if you zoom in close enough, does it, Ruhif? But fundamentally isn't one. I'd call that intellectual dishonesty on Ruhif's part. But he's a scumbag, so what do you expect?
Well, yeah, he like, I mean, the fact that he didn't use a tangent plane says it all, because he knew by using a tangent plane that John could just go, well, that's the end of that. You've just admitted that this process can't work over a curved surface. So he needed, but he gave the impression that he was. If you listen to the way he did his presentation, he was given the impression that he wasn't using a greater than 7/6R, but also, so the baller, he knew the ballers knew what he was saying, but he was trying to give John the impression, and anyone on the flat earth side, that he wasn't using that. He was just dealing with a horizontal, but it wasn't. He was using a greater than 7/6R.
Well, that's why we went to a neutral platform, Brian, so that he could have 25 minutes to talk, and I got less than a sentence out.
It's only reasonable on a neutral platform that it gets a 25-minute presentation backed up by the moderator, and then you get interrupted immediately. I think that's only reasonable. That's why they want us on neutral platforms.
Absolutely. That's the only way to handle this topic, because they obviously have truth on their side. Why would they need to silence us?
Why would they need to put your words 25 minutes into any presentation? Why not have you come up immediately and present what you've got, like we do? If there was a baller on the panel now, I'd shush you lot up immediately. There'd be airwaves cleared so we could hear their claim in its entirety. If it was interrupted, it would be started again, wouldn't it? That's how we do things here. Of course, when they start rumpusing the crap out of our rebuttal immediately, that gets shut down. Of course, they don't like that and feel that they need a neutral platform when it happens. Meanwhile, the 1-2 punch can be delivered anywhere. Yeah, obviously you've got to get a break in the airwaves like now. You can have fundies interrupting you like whoever's doing it to me on the G Plus panel. You just got to wait for your interruption-free air, and then you deliver the 1-2 punch. You'll need a flat plane for that. All your maps and models were derived from it. Check it out. You're using an elevation angle. Yeah, and even if you try and infinitely over 6R your way out of it, intellectually dishonest through HIF, you're still going to need a flat plane. Of course, if you say that you're just using the curved surface and it's good enough for an angle, then that's definitely intellectual dishonesty if you claim to be mathematically literate, which Ruhif says he is. So definitely dishonest. Just another lying shit in a long line of people who are fearful of the fact their religion's wrong. Hey, Rufy, that's why you're here, eh? That's why you remember. Because you're scared. Like all of you. That's why we need shoving down the list. We terrify you. All of the anti-flat earthers who are stuck down here in the pits of hell with us, they're all terrified. Figured it out over the weekend. I was thinking about it with a nice clear head with a computer that doesn't break. They're all scared. That's what they're doing. They're looking for their own affirmation of how right they were. Whenever anything comes up that might persuade themselves, otherwise, they convince themselves that they're dissuading others from hearing the terrible inconsistencies and inaccuracies of flat earthers. No, it's just suppression. Why? Well, through fear. That's what it is. They're scared they might be wrong. That's all this is.
Well, if Ruhif knew, now, I don't have any personal issue with Ruhif, right? As a person, I know he's a liar and all that, but I know what I'm dealing with him, right? But if he knew that he was using greater than 7/6R to say he's taking those angles that were in his presentation, then he knew he was using a curved adjacent, and he knows curved adjacents do not exist when it comes to an angle or anything else. He knows this. So he had to lie to himself. Go on, Chapman.
Did anybody ask Ruth why you're changing the size of your ball to prove the size of the ball?
They didn't allow that longer. Like, I got one complaint out about, well, it wasn't even a complaint. I got one statement out, and that was the end of coherent, rational conversation.
Shout out to Chris Berry. He says, evidence for R, it comes after Q and before S. We haven't even got to that housekeeping question yet. But thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it.
Oh, one more thing before we do. I was going to say, when they claim refraction, the problem of getting an angle from a curved baseline transposes over to you can't get an angle to a curved surface now because you've refracted that line, supposedly, even though you're changing the curved surface and not that line.
Right, your line, your measurement itself is then bent also, right? So what's going to be claimed to be a tangent? How's that geometric horizon working out for you? Oh, you haven't got one? No straight lines ever?
You're curving the straight line that you're telling us you don't need because you can get angles off a spherical surface. But even the straight line that you need, you're bending that too.
Yeah, it's got a bent line at 7/6R around a bent surface at a spherical rate based on R that he assumes. And that's an angle. You know, why not? I mean, why not?
You know the diagram you had up there earlier, Nathan? I didn't want to butt in because John, I think, or Chocolate was talking. But you had a diagram.
The one with the donkey.
With a bent, like an observer with a bent view, right? A bent view going around a sphere, right? Now, they don't calculate what they calculate based off of that. They calculate what they calculate based off of a direct, straight line of sight between an observer and an horizon. So what they do is they change, right? They basically, I'm going to show it in a minute, I'll do it up on GeoGebra. They change the length of that person's straight line view to the horizon. They change that by moving back the horizon, right? So they basically make a more shallow angle, basically is what they're doing. But they change that by moving when they move the horizon back, and then they just add a globe to that. That's all they do. That's basically what they're doing, because in reality, you do not see any curve between you and that horizon. There's no curve to be seen ever, right? So when they move back a person's straight line of sight, it's basically just an extension of a depression angle. That's all it is. Just like John has said before, where it's just the eye line is a horizontal and the sea level is another horizontal, and they're just two parallels with an angle between them at the horizon, between the observer and the horizon. All they're doing is extending that line back. That's all they're doing. There is no curve around a globe because it's not light refraction. It's right. About the observer's straight line of sight to an horizon, and that's what it is. And they move it to wherever direction they need to move it to, and then they just add a globe to that. Right. But it's always 7/6. It's never not 7/6, as they have claimed, Nathan, to you and us for a couple of years now. Well, there's never no atmosphere, right? What they're basically stating, without realizing it, most of them, because they don't know their own model, is that there is never a time when their model is not 7/6R. So it's impossible to ever see an horizon, with the exception of a fog or something, an horizon for an observer that would match 3959 radius. That never happened. And that's when they say standard refraction, that means they're always giving it a standard of 7/6R. And it increases from there, but it never decreases from 7/6R, because that never happens for the observer.
Well, you would expect to see the geometric horizon, right?
Nobody's expecting to see the geometric horizon.
Yes, including them.
And
so you're saying that...
Go on, John.
You're saying that what they call refraction is just their physical obstruction growing.
Yeah, an increased rate of the radius. Just increasing the radius means just increasing the size of the sphere. That's all it is. Right? But when they depict it on pictures like this from Andrew Thomas Young, you've got the point from O to H as what we labelled the donkey dick horizon, the bent line of sight. Well, I mean, this bent a line of sight over a bent surface. That's two bent lines, right? Oh, that's an angle. What?
Increasing the size of the sphere to prove the size of the sphere
Yeah, man.
Well,
that you increased it from.
Right.
Like,
Shroom. They're on shrooms.
People need to really understand that that's what they're doing. It's a trick. It's an okie doke that they're pulling on you the minute they say refraction. That's why they harp so hard on it.
right, but that line S to H, no matter how big you make the radius from C to S or C to H, no matter how big that gets, that line will never be straight. But
Exactly. They're
that's
screwed.
how
The
we measure it.
fundamental principles of how we navigate and how we measure the Earth don't comport with the sphere Earth. That is the bottom line. Yeah. So in summary, you've got the 1-2 punch. This is what it is. In essence, you cannot get an elevation angle measurement from a curved surface. And elevation angle measurements were used to derive the maps and models that they then turned into a sphere. So we've got flat Earth being measured, flat Earth being modelled, flat Earth being mapped. And then they claim that in the in-between process, they've stuck a sphere projection in between that we don't use on the map and we didn't derive from when we measured angles to the stars. So every single claim to be a globe proof will always start with a derivation from a flat plane. John, it's your point. Do you want to add anything to the summary?
Well, that's when they add in the assumption it's a sphere after they measure the flat plane.
Yeah, you've got to measure a flat plane first.
It's more than a 1-2 punch. It's more like a 2-piece and a biscuit.
Okay.
No, the biscuit would be gas pressure without a container.
Oh, you got there before me. I was just about to. Perfect timing.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Hold on, that's the perfect timing, right? So I wanted to keep that separate, and we have. That's why I gave it such a concise summary and asked you to do the same. Because separately to that 1-2 punch, which is very much based in mathematics in terms of physical measurements of their claimed mathematics and how they debunked and proved we're on a non-spherical surface, i.e. flat plane, because of how it's measured and how it's mapped. Now that is self-contained within elevation angle measurement argument and black swan argument. Those are the two. So if you want to summarize it as a which is the one and which is the two, well, the two are black swan. If the Earth was a sphere radius 3959, then every distance to horizon measurement could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the black swan shows the geometric claim to be horizon beyond its geometric limitations. It's no longer a hill in the way. The horizon's not an Earth curve. That's punch one. You haven't got a physical geometric horizon to claim geometry with. We've debunked it. Point two. Every single claim to be globe proof will have been taken from measurements off a flat plane. Maps and models made from a flat plane, then transposed onto a sphere, to then be projected back onto a flat map. That's your 1-2 punch. Separate from that, summarised twice, we have the dentist drill of flat earth arguments, which is to say it's exceptionally good at what it does, but it's really limited in terms of its ability to expand, no pun intended. And that I'll ask by way of the housekeeping question. So any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Even if it was a sphere, you would still need a container.
No evidence. And can I say something? That's the fundamentals of boxing. 1-2 punch, then they teach you how to get in there with the uppercut. And that's what we have.
Yeah.
Black swan, elevation angle, uppercut.
Right, you got to deliver a couple of jabs first.
It's the uppercut.
Yes.
Sorry, mate.
No, so you're right. We're all enthusiastic in the same way. We're saying that this is the uppercut, but this is an uppercut you can deliver, leave someone dazed and confused and walk off. It can stand alone.
Yeah, it's the gas pressure without a container is the easiest argument to understand because you experience gas pressure every day. You don't deal with geometry every day.
Right.
Facts.
So you nod up to the sky and say, "You reckon that's a vacuum, do you?" I'm thinking not. It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. If the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill that space. It's called entropy. Gas expands to fill volume. Space, outer space, is claimed to be a massive volume for gas to fill. And that's all gas would want to do. It would want to expand out into that area of space. And what do you know? Space is a space. So, yeah, entropy law. We'd be dead. We wouldn't have any gas to breathe.
Weren't we talking last week about why people are not using these arguments? Get into the fundamentals of the fight, people.
Well, you know, the rebuttal that you hear to gas pressure without a container is gas pressure gradient, but that's a red herring. And I don't even know if they realize why.
Or here's this container. Now let's talk about how you don't need a container in order to have gas pressure. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about how we have a gas pressure gradient in which, hello, you need gas pressure in the first place, or we're just gonna say, nah, we don't need that. We don't need to talk about that because we have a container. But let me tell you how we don't need one. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, if you're really lucky, you'll get somebody that's partially knowledgeable on the subject, jumping between the word system and container and trying to get you in a gotcha.
I like the first one that Chocolate came up with. Let me show you how you can have gas pressure without a container in a container.
Yep, definitely. We definitely heard that. That was one of the guys that came here for the Bitcoin. He was just like, yeah, of course you need a container for gas pressure, but let's talk about here and how you don't need that. Okay, that's not going to work very well for you.
So, yeah.
Just by saying gas pressure gradient, you're admitting there's a gas pressure there, which needs a container.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, QE phrased it the best. You've got a delta of the original claim. So how can you have a gas pressure gradient without a container? Oh, right, you're just going to ignore that your gas pressure gradient requires containment and ask how I can achieve a gas pressure gradient on a flat Earth or something. It's like, it's a complete red herring. It's a delta of the gas pressure I'm asking about. I'm saying to have gas pressure, we must have containment. There is no other way to achieve gas pressure. Contrary to that, in fact, the complete contrapositive would be to have an area available to the gas for it to fill. Like outer space. Because the gas would fill it. It's a law of nature.
By analogy, their argument would be, you claim that dogs exist, and they show you a chihuahua and ask you to explain it.
Exactly. It's a delta of the dog. Do dogs exist? Yeah, they do. But I don't need to explain that if I ask you to explain how this chihuahua exists on a flat Earth.
I think the greatest part is that they think that this gas pressure exists with no container in the middle of a vacuum, while this ball that this gas pressure supposedly exists around is moving at 66,000 miles per hour around another gas ball in a vacuum, in the same vacuum. Right. I mean, serious?
He talks about that. He says there's gas clouds in outer space.
Yeah,
well, that'll bring us into a housekeeping question of gravity, right?
Well, they do claim that there's a not actual force that you can think of as a force that pulls things down, go boom, boom like gas. Even though gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume it has. And gravity, as they describe it, isn't a force. Oh, that reminds me. Raichi00000 put out a video about a channel that's relatively new who's unfortunately going to, by consequence, get plugged in this regard. In fact, no, he won't. I just won't mention who it was. But you can go and check out who he was and might end up by default seeing who he is because Raichi covers this video specifically in the most humiliating manner. Oh, it was so delicious, Raichi. I really enjoyed watching your video of some clown telling flat earthers how wrong they are when we see gravity's not a force and then going to some wiki entry that says you can't think of it as a force, but it isn't a force, but that doesn't mean it isn't really a force because I say that if you say something isn't something, but it is because it is something else, that means that gravity is technically a force. Roll on Raichi playing clip after clip after clip after clip of people telling him it isn't. And how it isn't. And why it isn't. You clown! So Raichi, kudos. Go and subscribe today to Raichi500000. So check her out. And she is very, very good at being so civil in the way she does it. She doesn't ad hom him. She doesn't demean the guy. She just points out how stupid he is. And he is. It's like gravity is not a force. It hasn't been for 107 years. It's the not actual force that you can think of as a force, according to George Musa, but that doesn't change the fact that bending space-time isn't something that happens in our physical reality. It's something that happens in a conceptual fourth-dimensional bending of space-time derived in the mind's eye of Einstein. Certainly not physics, definitely maths, definitely inconsequential to my physical reality, definitely not a force, as much as you want it to hold gas pressure here, right? So, any scientific evidence of gravity?
Did you say
Which
we
is a-
can't use?
Go on, John. Did you say we can't use what?
Did you say we can't use a conceptual medium that runs counter to space?
You can do whatever you want conceptually, but it won't affect my physical reality in any way, shape, or form, if that's what you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
I have an observation of a helium balloon going up. Does that prove gravity?
No, because that doesn't comport with gravity. Gas go down, go boom, boom. What's your problem?
Oh, well, that's terrible because
No,
the
that's 'cause
helium
it's lighter.
balloon's filled with gas. So is that like some more of the rebellious gas particles that don't want to act the way gas acts?
I have scientific evidence that gravity as a force definitely can't exist, that I can show and demonstrate at any point. Objects weigh more in a vacuum. They couldn't and cannot weigh more in a vacuum if gravity existed and it was a force. They would have to weigh less. Objects weigh more in a vacuum, and they weigh more at higher altitudes, regardless of the lies people are told. So gravity as a force, scientifically, from a physics point of view, cannot exist due to that fact.
Gravity
talking
being a force of masses attracting. Basically, they're saying that all things are I mean, because it would be like magnets, right? Everything would have some degree of attraction to another. I don't see how they got around that.
Well, the biggest mass would be the biggest attractor. That's it. It'd be like the biggest magnet would be the biggest attractor, that kind of thing. That's why everything is supposed to go down, go boom, boom towards the Earth within gravity as a force. But that's not current gravity, but current claim of gravity.
Well,
Right,
Brian,
did we clear this
Go
up?
on, John,
Does gas go down, go boom, boom?
No.
that's what I was going to say to Brian is you've disproven a downward bias, not necessarily gravity. That's just a name that heliocentrists give it, right?
Well, I didn't prove a downward bias.
What downward bias? Excuse me? We have a downward bias? Is that so? What about things that go up? That doesn't sound very
No,
biased downward.
I said he disproved, that there is a downward.
My bad.
Yes.
I misheard you.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry,
sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, currently, gravity is only an apparent effect within Einstein's general relativity. Apparent effect. And he describes this within his equivalence principle, something that the majority of heliocentric believers seem to not want to or not be able to learn about and understand. It's an apparent effect. Within his equivalence principle, the claim is that the globe Earth is always expanding, right, in size. We're back to expanding globes again, expanding in size, right? So when you drop your phone, it doesn't drop. It holds in free space, and the ground comes up to meet it. But why the globe is not getting bigger, right, back to contradiction, is because space and time are curving in around it as a kind of a subduing force. So it can't grow bigger because space and time are stopping it from growing bigger. But it's always trying to grow bigger logically, then according to that, there is no way for the ground to be coming up to meet the object that's in free space because space and time is stopping it doing that. But yet it's claimed to do that. So if me and Chocolate both dropped our phones or let go of our phones right now across held our arms out from our shoulders and both at the same time let go of our phones, according to Einstein, the ground the chocolate is standing on and the ground I'm standing on is expanding up to meet the phone, right? But the get around of that is that space and time is coming in around it, stopping the ground from doing that. So he's basically pointing out that what he's saying is not happening and it's all rubbish.
Brian,
Hey, Brian,
What
maybe
happens?
that's the only time that you can actually calculate it. Then you're always extending. So that's time when gravity needs to take effect. So everybody should just drop something at the same time, and therefore you can calculate your fraction, which is 7.
You're breaking up. It would have been hysterical. It would have been great. You're breaking up a little bit,
Sorry.
Chocolate. Go
Sorry.
ahead, Adam.
just a quick question for Brian. So, say I drop my phone and remember on a supposed ball here, and Mitchell from Australia drops his phone at the same time. Which way does the Earth move?
The ground for both of you comes up to meet the phone.
No. That's not correct.
Yeah, that is equivalence principle. Einstein's equivalence
If
principle.
we accept that time moves things,
No, the claim is that the claim is the anti-force to that is that space and time is always curving inward onto the ball, stopping the Earth from growing.
my
big,
bad.
bigger.
So time bends, does it? Time
And
does that?
space, yeah.
No.
Yeah, the concept known as time and the description known as space come together and as joint forces to bend in around the globe to stop the globe becoming bigger. Even though, which is a contradiction to what Adam just asked, which would state that both the ground underneath Mitchell and underneath Adam would have to be coming up to meet the phone simultaneously.
No,
So
time doesn't do that.
How can the ground do that if space and time?
How can the ground do that? How can time do that to the ground? Forget about the ground doesn't do that. Time can't do it. Okay. Anybody else?
I'm just a messenger.
Yeah, I know the pain. Anybody else got anything to add on the knockout punch or on gas pressure without a container?
Well, I was just going to point out that in both Einstein and Newtonian, there's a claimed mass of Earth, which would you'd have to define mass, and then you'd have to give a measurement, including the volume of Earth.
Well, I don't know if the bending and warping of space-time stops the Earth from growing, but I do know that space and time makes the heart grow fonder.
Oh, what a sweet sentiment. That's
Lovely.
very nice. Beautiful way to end the show. So with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then... Oh, have I not managed to unmute you guys? Clearly not. Let's do that now. Stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!